There are a bunch of insane power-ups coming to One Punch Man that you might not know about. First up, we have Garo. This guy has had more transformations than any other character in the series. He went from upper A-class level to being the second strongest person on Earth, just behind Saitama. But after he was defeated, Garo stopped being a monster and lost all the power he gained from it. So at the moment, he's probably just mid-tier S-class level. After he escaped from the heroes, Bang found Garo meditating in the secret training grounds where he originally created the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist. Garo agreed to return to Bang's dojo so he could remember his own fist, the Monster Calamity God Slayer Fist. This disaster level god fighting style combined 11 other styles that Garo was able to master. Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, Whirlwind Iron Cutting Fist, Exploding Heart Release Fist, Tiger Fang True Fist, Fire Dance Bullet Trail Fist, Purgatory Abyss Fist, Lake Breaking Ice River Fist, Fool's Path Mountain Range Fist, Ultimate Fist of the Yatagarasu, Pressure Point Killer Fist, Poisonous Ogre Fist, and Lone Fist of Prosperity. Garo's plan is to have a rematch against everyone he fought as a monster. After Bang, the order would be Bomb, Flashy Flash, Blast, and finally, Saitama. Garo is pretty sure that by fighting them in that order, he'll be able to achieve a form of awakening without monsterizing. For now though, Bang is forcing Garo to work his way up from the lowest position in the dojo. He also has to do part-time work because of his court-ordered rehabilitation program. But Bang also resigned from the Hero Association to make room for Garo as his successor. Garo's rehabilitation will take a bit of time, but Sekingar wanted him to join the roster as soon as possible. And despite the expected backlash, Sitch knows that to prepare for Shibabawa's world-ending prophecy, they will need all the strength they can get. Next up, we have Atomic Samurai. This once overconfident swordsman was painfully humbled during the Monster Association arc. Not only was he perfectly countered and disrespected by Black S, he also failed to save his friends from the Council of Swordmasters. But it was because of this that he inherited the Sunblade from Master Nichiren. This secret weapon is said to have been made on a continent that sank into the ocean. It's been passed down for generations within the council. The Sunblade is actually a living thing and referred to as a telepathic sword. It gauges its wielder before lending its power. If the wielder isn't accepted, then the weapon becomes impossible to unsheath. To gain acceptance, Atomic Samurai achieved a state of mind similar to a reflective water surface. This brought him to a whole new level of concentration. Once the blade accepted him, Atomic was suddenly strong enough to be able to take down a disaster-level dragon like Homeless Emperor in a few seconds. The sword itself appeared to be an extension of his own body. When the weapon collided with Golden S, who possessed a combined might of 11 trillion Black S cells, the landscape was torn apart. The difference was so great that for a moment, Golden S feared that it might have been monsterization. When he tried to break the weapon, it began curving into a whip-like shape and severed one of his arms. Unfortunately, Atomic was only able to keep this up for a few seconds before he was forced to sheath the blade. It takes up way too much energy and completely overtakes his mind. Once Atomic is able to master it, he will become much stronger. And thanks to the strongest man on Earth, we have a good idea of how he'll get there. After witnessing King's demonstration of peak swordsmanship, Atomic decided to consider himself a fledgling and restart his training from scratch. Atomic was already familiar with Master Nichiren's ability to cut an apple without it realizing that it had been cut, the supernatural feat of slicing through the gaps between cells. But he saw King do more than that. The blade itself didn't even realize it had been unsheathed. If Atomic Samurai can manage that, then he should be able to avoid being assimilated by the Sunblade. But that's not the only power-up waiting for him. One of the reasons the Council of Swordmasters exists is to find the Moonblade. According to legend, the warrior who wields both the Sunblade and the Moonblade will gain unparalleled power as the Sword Master. And thanks to Saitama's fight against Garo, we might actually know where it is. When Garo used Extreme Fa-Jin, it generated enough force to be felt on the opposite side of the planet. And because of this, a previously submerged landmass was brought up to the surface. On it, as a sign of how long it's been lost, there is even a statue dedicated to Cruel Dragon, a legendary monster from 800 years ago that Saitama unsealed and destroyed. A large class of Japanese students were taking a field trip overseas and were saved by the sudden rise. We even see that there is some sort of settlement near them. If they go check it out, they may be able to return with the Moonblade, or at least the information that Atomic Samurai and the new Council of Swordsmasters will need to find it. Speaking of the new council, we haven't seen what Yuta and Shido are capable of just yet, so we can't really foresee any power-ups for them. But after half of his body was melted, Master Nichiren received artificial legs and is now a cyborg. By applying his sword techniques and treating his new legs as weapons, he can circulate his ki through them. Thanks to this, he has the potential to be even stronger than he was before, which already seemed to be on par with Atomic Samurai. He's also shown a bit of interest in becoming a hero thanks to Atomic's example. He and the new Swordsmasters could end up joining Neo Heroes. That way, they'd be able to challenge Atomic and his A-class disciples as they wait for them all to get stronger. From there, we have the most mysterious S-class hero. It used to be Blast, but these days, that title belongs to Watchdog Man. The only time this guy has ever shown up with other S-class heroes was during the meeting just before Boros and the Dark Matter Thieves attacked. But strangely, he didn't help them fight at all and was totally absent. Known as the Guardian of Q City, he is solely responsible for it being considered the safest city in the country. No matter how monsters decide to invade his territory, Watchdog Man is able to smell them and get to their location at speeds of more than 155 miles per hour. He deals with monsters so fast that the Hero Association can't even sound the disaster alarm quickly enough. And like with Saitama, they don't even get a chance to gauge the disaster levels of the monsters he beats. For all we know, plenty of them could be disaster level dragon. And throughout all of this, his facial expressions don't change in the slightest. To Garo, Watchdog Man looked more like a monster than his opponents. The Hero Hunter saw him take down close to 30 monsters and thoroughly analyzed his fighting style, enough to mimic it later on. Usually that's more than enough to secure victory for Garo, even against S-class heroes. Just look at his fights against Tank Top Master, Bomb, Bang, and Blast. But against this guy, he was the one who was dog-walked. Watchdog Man wrecked him without even trying. The only reason Garo survived was because he stepped outside of Q City. At the end of the bonus chapter for Volume 28, we're reminded that Watchdog Man's true power is still unknown. Speaking of unknown power, Pig God also seems to be saving his own secret power for when the time is right. Even though things were looking pretty bad during their fight against the Monster Association, Pig God decided to reserve it for when Shiba Bao's prophecy comes to fruition. Fubuki is in a far less definitive position when it comes to her power-up. After Tatsumaki's fight against Saitama, she called her own perspective naive, and resolved herself to fight alone like Tatsumaki. But on account of Saitama's advice, in the end, she is still with the Blizzard group. As a team, their forces have become a lot stronger thanks to borrowing Saitama's pet dog, Rover. She's also taking care of her former vice president and fellow Esper, Psychos, and all of her minions have vowed to become stronger. Now that Fubuki is actively doing the same, she should finally be able to leave the top of B class and enter A class. And there's no reason to think she wouldn't be high up. Instead of trying to be an overwhelming powerhouse like her sister Tatsumaki, Fubuki needs to embrace her role as a support hero. Protective shields, power transfer, and thermal cooling. Without Fubuki, at least 3 S-class heroes would have died during the Monster Association arc. So her getting it together would be a major boon, because she definitely has a bright future as a leader. Tatsumaki is changing too. In her case, she's already way ahead of most other characters. But using that strength without inconveniencing other heroes will be what makes her even better. We saw her accept help and even collaborate during the Monster Association. And thanks to Saitama's example, she's even open to guiding heroes she would have previously disregarded as weaklings. Tatsumaki learning how to play well with others will allow her to grow in ways that she never has before. Super Alloy Darkshine really needs to get over his PTSD from fighting Garo. Luckily for him, Garo didn't list him as one of the opponents he needs to rematch against. Darkshine was known for having the greatest durability among S-class heroes. If he can regain his willpower and overcome the setback, he will become even better than he was before. After seeing Saitama in action and learning about his fight against Garo from Genos, Zombie Man decided to follow in his footsteps. In an effort to become stronger to properly face the threat of God, Zombie Man returned to his creator, Dr. Genus, in hopes of breaking his limiter. It's unclear how much of an immediate difference that would make, but we know for sure that it is no simple feat. Many have tried, and many have died in the process. Luckily for Zombie Man, death is probably even harder for him to achieve, so it may very well come down to just time. That being said, we can't exactly expect Dr. Genius to be able to do this reliably, considering he has never come close before. But based on how monsterization works, Zombie Man's willingness and resolve as a hero could very well make the difference. Flashy Flash and Speedo Sound Sonic have the potential to become the greatest dynamic duo in heroic history. Together, they'd be able to propel each other even further. There's also the potential for them to acquire one sword each from that man. The power difference between Flashy Flash's techniques and Empty Void's is incredibly vast. In order to properly join the battle against God that is so personal for them, they will have no choice but to become even stronger. Metal Knight has taken a very distant approach to his heroic duties. He mostly plays the role of cleaning up once a big issue has been dealt with. He took the remains of Boros' alien ship long ago for the sake of creating stronger weapons, and I imagine we'll be able to see the fruits of his labor soon enough. There's also the fact that he's decided to keep a watchful eye on Saitama. If that's the case, he could very well gain access to exclusive knowledge that not even the Hero Association has. But probably not on how Saitama's power works, because if it were that simple, Genos would be much stronger by now. Instead, I'm thinking about all the unregistered threats that Saitama deals with too quickly for others to even know about. Dr. Beaufoy's enemy and fellow S-Class hero, Drive Knight, is also a character that thrives on information. During the Monster Association arc, Drive Knight was able to observe his fellow heroes as they were pushed to their utmost limits. As the Batman of the Hero Association, I imagine he may have already begun devising countermeasures for all of them. Drive Knight's various tactical transformations are based on different Shogi pieces, but we still haven't seen Pawn, Lance, Rook, or King forms from him just yet. When it comes to Genos, he recently received a major upgrade after Saitama's fight with Tatsumaki. With it, he was able to easily defeat a dragon-level monster that his fellow S-Class hero, Tank Top Master, could not. But even still, Genos' upgrades never end, and it's only a matter of time before he will need a new one. The real question is whether it will come from some salvage technology again, or a severe beating as usual. Tsuyu is another person who wanted to become Saitama's disciple after a severe beating, but was rejected. Although he and his Void Fist were impressive enough for him to win the Super Fight Tournament 5 times, he's not exactly S-Class level just yet. During the later event of the Monster Association arc, we saw him in the hospital. Seeing Saitama in action inspired him to become a hero. However, with Garo already set to become the new face of martial arts for the Hero Association, it makes more sense for Tsuyu to join the Neo Heroes. His sister, Suiko, also uses the Void Fist style. She even claims to have surpassed him, but she'll be looking after their grandfather's dojo in his stead. When it comes to monsters, Black S has a lot of eating to do if he wants to recover even a fraction of his previous strength. Thankfully, Rover's new premium beef diet from Fubuki has left a lot more dog food for him to eat. Returning to golden or even platinum status will be really difficult for him, especially while he's trying to keep a low profile as a pet monkey. But if he can avoid destruction, it's only up from here. The same goes for Rover. He used to be much bigger before Saitama adopted him. The general assumption is that Rover's size is based on sunlight exposure, but we don't know for sure. Back then, Rover was able to tank some pretty crazy attacks, so going back to being like Clifford the Big Red Dog would be great for when the real threats show up. Right now, God is shaping up to be the big bad final villain of One Punch Man. Blast has been fighting this thing for decades, but it doesn't seem like he is taking the lead at any point. God's influence is expanding, and it's becoming harder and harder for Blast and his comrades to keep up. A large-scale battle like Saitama versus Garo was enough to begin breaking the dimensional seal that keeps him away from Earth. But according to Blast, that was just the warm-up. Besides manifesting more and more, God has the potential to coerce even more strong characters to become his minions. If someone as strong as Empty Void, who is equal to Blast in terms of ability, was able to be turned during his hunt for the cubes, then the same could be the case for just about anyone. Then there's Saitama. You might think that Kate Baldy has already reached the ultimate pinnacle, but that's not entirely true. We now know that Saitama is always becoming stronger. On account of having a broken limiter, Saitama's potential growth is limitless. It's very hard for Saitama to experience serious emotions. But when his house was destroyed and when Genos was killed, we saw Saitama's power level spike dramatically. With how grave things are bound to be with the fulfillment of the prophecy, we can definitely expect something similar to happen yet again. In the comments, let us know which power-up you're most excited to see. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.